And we are live. Welcome to Olivia's Stories, ladies and gentlemen. I am currently regretting every decision I've ever made. Hello, Redditors. I've always been a huge fan of this platform, and now that everything in my life is crumbling, I feel like it is suitable to share my situation here. I am hoping that by speaking up and sharing my story, some of y'all might avoid making the same marriage-scattering mistake I made. Temptation is something we should all avoid. For a few minutes of fun, I've ruined my marriage that took years to build, and I've lost every sense of stability. I cheated on my husband with a younger student of mine at the college where I lecture. This singular mistake of mine has currently torn apart my entire life. I know you're probably wondering about what happened and how it happened. So let me give you my backstory first. My name is Serena, and I am a 45-year-old woman. My husband, Mike, is a 46-year-old man, and we've been married for 23 years. We have two wonderful kids, Damien and Resend. Damien is 21 and Resend is 19. They're both currently away at college. Mike and I met at college. Mike and I first crossed paths in the hustle and bustle of the university library. You know, that place where the air is thick with the smell of old books and dreams of the future. I was knee-deep in my love affair with literature, lost in the magic of words sprawled across pages. Mike, this curious guy with a spark in his eye, noticed me engrossed in my reading. Our initial interactions were more like quiet smiles and shared glances amidst the sea of books. Slowly but surely, our late-night coffee breaks turned into conversations, and those stolen glances during lectures became the highlight of my day. Well, when I started college, I was all about being super serious. You know, no time for romance, just books and lectures. That was the plan. But then along came Mike, this dude who practically radiated happiness. Always smiling, super kind, the whole package. At first I resisted it. I was like, nope, staying focused here. But Mike was relentless. His laughter could turn the most me day into something special. He had this way of making life feel lighter, like he held the secret to enjoying every little moment. Mike seemed to have cracked the code of perpetual happiness. Always with that infectious smile, he had this gentle and kind aura that melted away my well-intentioned walls. In the beginning, I fought against it, reminding myself of my initial pact with academia. I tried to stick to my no love, just study rule, but Mike's easygoing vibe and genuine joy started breaking down my defenses. It was like he had this magical power to turn seriousness into laughter and make every day a bit brighter. Mike was like a persistent ray of sunlight. He warmed his way into my heart. His laughter was contagious, capable of turning the gloomiest day into a joyous adventure. Gradually, I found myself drawn to his easygoing nature and the simple joy he found in every moment. It was as if he held the key to a world where seriousness was replaced by laughter and warmth. So, despite my best efforts, love crept in, and suddenly, my heart wasn't following the academic script I had planned, the strict study-only policy I had set for it. Mike's charm flipped my college journey into an unexpected adventure of laughter and warmth. Love happened, and it was a surprise that made those study-only intentions fly right out the window. Against my initial resolve, I started to see the beauty in letting someone in. Our first date wasn't your usual fancy dinner or movie night. Mike decided we should have a spontaneous picnic in the park at sunset. It might sound cliché, but trust me, Mike had a talent for making the ordinary super special. We walked through the park, carrying blankets and a basket filled with all sorts of snacks. Mike's excitement rubbed off on me, and I couldn't help but get into the spirit. We found a spot under a big oak tree that seemed just right. What made the picnic awesome was the surprise element. Instead of regular sandwiches, Mike brought out a mix of international snacks, Thai noodles, French pastries, and some weird fruit I couldn't pronounce. It was like a mini world tour for our taste buds, right there on the blanket. As we munched on the goodies, Mikey told hilarious stories that had us both cracking up. He had this knack for turning everyday stuff into something funny. Time seemed to stand still, just us, the sound of leaves and distant city noise. Then we had an unexpected dance party with just Mike and I in attendance, LOL. Mike pulled out a tiny speaker, and a sweet tune started playing. He grinned and, like a pro, asked me to dance. We twirled around under the stars, laughing and having a blast. It felt like a scene from a feel-good movie. But wait, there was more. Mike handed me a small, fancy-looking package. I opened it to find a glow-in-the-dark frisbee. He remembered me mentioning how I liked playing frisbee in the evenings. The fact that he remembered and turned it into a surprise was just so sweet. We ended up throwing the frisbee in the semi-darkness, missing catches and laughing like crazy. We didn't care if we looked silly, it was about enjoying the moment together. I remember thinking, this is the kind of date you remember forever. As the night wound down, we lay on the blanket, staring at the stars. Mike shared his dreams, and I shared mine. It was a level of honesty and connection that felt real. Our first date wasn't just fun. It was a sneak peek into the kind of relationship where you can be yourself. I went home that night with a heart full of laughter, a glow-in-the-dark frisbee, and this feeling that I'd just had a seriously amazing time. Mike had this way of turning a regular evening into an unforgettable adventure, and remember feeling that this was the kind of person I'd want to spend the rest of my life with. Deciding to tie the knot before completing college was a wild move, but for Mike and me, it felt like the right kind of crazy. Mike's parents, though well off, were surprisingly laid back and adored me. On the flip side, my family couldn't get enough of Mike. So, despite the unconventional timing, we took the plunge into marriage. The decision to get married wasn't about throwing a grand affair. We opted for a small church ceremony with only a handful of people invited. It raised a few eyebrows considering Mike's wealthy background, but what folks didn't know was that it was exactly what I wanted. Something private and intimate. Walking down the aisle in that small church, the air felt charged with excitement and a bit of disbelief. The intimate setting surrounded by our closest loved ones made it feel like it was just us, promising forever. Mike's parents, the coolest, most easygoing people ever lol, cheered us on, while my family beamed with joy. Our vows were exchanged in a space filled with love and support, far away from the grandeur one might expect from a family with Mike's financial standing. The choice for a more modest celebration wasn't about avoiding extravagance. It was about authenticity, about the simplicity of our commitment to each other. The reception that followed was a cozy gathering filled with laughter, shared stories, and heartfelt toasts. It wasn't the opulent affair one might associate with a wealthy family, but it was perfect for us. We danced, laughed, and celebrated the start of our journey together, surrounded by the warmth of our closest friends and family. Our decision to marry before finishing college might have seemed impulsive to some, but for us, it was a declaration of love and commitment that defied societal expectations. Love knows no perfect timing. Also, looking back, our small wedding in that quiet church remains a cherished memory. It wasn't about the size of the guest list or the extravagance of the event. It was about two people choosing each other, surrounded by the love of those who mattered most. And in that simplicity, we found the foundation for our love story. You know, they say you never know what you have till it's gone. I never knew how precious and important Mike was to me until I lost him all because of some fun. The transition from college to whatever came after was another whole chapter for Mike and me. Graduation was looming, and we were headed in different directions, driven by our unique dreams. For me, teaching was the goal. It wasn't just a job, it was a passion. I wanted to be in a classroom, helping students grow. Mike, on the other hand, had a more laid-back approach to college. He was set to inherit the family business and become the big-shot CEO LOL, and he also had a trust fund waiting for him. College, for him, was more about the experience, the parties, the friendships, and the whole shebang. Our talks about life after college highlighted the gap between our plans. I was all about education, wanting to make a difference in the lives of students. Mike, on the flip side, was cool with life unfolding naturally, knowing his future was somewhat set. The contrast in our college experiences and post-graduation plans didn't mess with the bond we built during those years. Moving from college to the real world brought a mix of excitement and nerves. I went job hunting, hoping to find my place in the education scene. Meanwhile, Mike smoothly transitioned into the CEO role, handling the business world like a pro. Our post-college journeys took us in different directions, but our connection stayed strong. Living together as a married couple, we supported each other through the highs and lows. I found my groove in teaching, while Mike tackled the complexities of running a business. And a bunch of years passed since Mike and I left college. I was now a successful professor teaching at a college that I cannot name due to privacy, and Mike was CEO of his family's business. Our kids were also off in another state, tackling their own college adventures, lol. And you know what? Life, despite all the success, started having this nagging feeling of routine, the everyday grind, the comfortable rhythm of our marriage. It started to feel like a broken record. With the kids off doing their thing, I was always bored, wondering what came next. All the wins and achievements that should have made me feel on top of the world weren't shielding me from the creeping boredom. The excitement we had in the early days has mellowed into a kind of peaceful but dull routine. Mike's CEO life kept him busy, dealing with board meetings and business trips, and sometimes it felt like we were in different worlds. And then there was also the fear of getting old. The little signs like a wrinkle here and a gray hair there made me realize we were not the college kids anymore. Life had thrown us responsibilities, and it was messing with who I thought I was. It's not that I'm unhappy with Mike or the life we built. It's just this itch for more. Personal growth, rediscovering what makes me tick. The success that defined us seems to have dimmed the spark that kicked off our journey together. Years roll by, I'm still just there doing some soul searching. I was respected and successful, but still, yet I felt so bored. Our life, the careers, the pride in our kids, all awesome stuff. But the itch for something more won't shut up. It started pushing me to shake things up, to find a new groove. It was at a point where I needed to talk to Mike, to understand each other, and maybe take on new adventures, together or on our own. A chance to rediscover and renew ourselves. But I never talked to Mike. That was where I was stupid. Mike was the most understanding person I knew. If only I had talked to him, he would have listened. He would have tried, he would have fought for us, but I didn't talk to him. I left everything inside me and pretended as if I was fine. And as if to destroy everything I had built in years, the devil Lowell sent a person named Jake. Jake was the biggest mistake I made. Let me tell you about Jake. He was 20 years old and he was a student in some of my classes. I say was because even though I haven't been called in by the board to explain myself, I'm pretty sure that I am losing my job over this mistake. Now, like I previously said, Jake was a student in some of my classes. He stood out because he was very good-looking and very charismatic. I noticed that a lot of the students liked Jake because he was funny and handsome and also smart. Jake was the kind of student that was in everyone's good books. Initially, I didn't notice him much or pay much attention to him, other than observing the fact that he was intelligent and also handsome. He also reminded me of my kids, as my kids were smart and also very good-looking. They were also very charismatic. And there was a running joke in the house that our kids could take down a monkey from a tree, lol. Either ways, I only started to notice Jake when he started interacting with me more. He would stay after lectures were over and ask if he could help me or something. He would ask to help me with the virtually anything I needed help with, be it grading another class's test or carrying some of my things to the car. He was generally very helpful, or at least that's how it seemed to me. Jake was a very manipulative person, but it wasn't something I really noticed then, as I was entranced by him. Soon, Jake and I were talking more. We would have conversations and defend our points of views. For example, he believed that Socrates did not exist and that he must have just been a figment of Plato's imagination, while I, on the other hand, believed that Socrates must have existed, and just because there was no record of his existence apart from Plato's notes didn't mean he did not exist. It was obvious pretty quick that Jake wanted something more. That was the time where I should have shut him down. But I kept encouraging him, talking to him, having him help me, and pretend as if I didn't know that he wanted more. Soon, Jake and I were hanging out more outside lecture hours, and soon we were getting intimate. He said he didn't care about my age, and told me that I was beautiful, no matter how old I was. I was flattered and entranced by the fact that someone as handsome as Jake, who every girl in the campus had a crush on, actually liked me. We were soon getting intimate a lot in my office after lecture hours. I couldn't take Jake to my home because Mike had an irregular schedule. Even though he was always busy, you could never know when he would be free and at home. He could be in Italy for a business trip, and in a few hours' time, he would tell you that he was flying back home. Sometimes he wouldn't even tell you he was coming so as to surprise you. I was too scared and horrified by the prospect of Mike coming home and finding me and Jake together. Even more so, my kids had inherited Mike's habits of not informing anybody before coming home. So sometimes you would think that they were in school, and lo and behold, they would be on the next flight home without even telling anybody. I didn't want my kids coming home to surprise me and meeting me and Jake intimate, as that would probably scar them for life, so I resorted to my office and hotels. Jake and I mostly preferred my office, as we could be intimate immediately after lectures had ended and everyone had left. I even started staying at work late and telling Mike I had to work overtime when he was at home just so I could spend time with Jake at the office. Honestly, during my whole time of doing this, I felt very guilty. I loved Mike a lot and couldn't imagine my life without him. But I also wanted some excitement in my life, and Jake could provide that excitement as he was young and active. Mike's business was very successful, but that also left us with little time for each other. I could barely remember the last time we had a whole day to each other. Mike planned on slowly retiring, though, when our oldest Damien was done with college and Mike could slowly pass the mantle of CEO onto him. They were times when I would sometimes have nightmares of Mike finding out and confronting me, or even coming to see me at the university and stumbling onto me and Jake intimate. I would dream about Mike screaming at me, asking me how I could cheat on him. To be honest, I should have taken those dreams seriously and maybe stopped cheating while I was still ahead and Mike was still in the dark, but I didn't, LOL. I even thought the dreams were only coming as a result of me being scared of Mike finding out. Well, on the day when it all blew up in my face, I was at the university. I had just finished up a lecture about an hour ago, and Jake and I were being intimate. Mike had already texted me that he would soon be home in a few hours, so I planned to finish up with Jake and then go back home in a few hours to meet Mike, as I had missed him. I noticed that my kids had given me a few missed calls. Damien had called me 5 times, and Reese had called me 7 times. But I didn't pay it too much mind. In the house, we had a rule that if it's very urgent, text about it. This was because sometimes we would be too busy to pick a call. But we could take a quick glance at our phone if it was a text. Also, Damien and Reese could call you a billion times for the smallest things. LOL. So texting just worked better. I planned to call them back when I was frightened later in the evening because I knew if it was a very huge emergency, one of them would have texted since. I soon finished up with Jake, dropped him off, and then headed home. I was so happy to see Mike. I didn't even pay attention to his countenance. I made us dinner, and then we sat down to watch a movie and discuss stuff. All of a sudden, Mike asked me if I had checked my Instagram and that he had tagged me on a post. I was a bit surprised, as Mike wasn't really an Instagram person, but sometimes or occasionally, he would tag me under funny posts or something he felt he wanted me to see, or he would save and send the post to me. I told Mike I would check the post later, but he insisted on it and said he wanted me to check it now, so I opened up my Instagram and went all the way to my notifications. I immediately noticed that Mike wasn't the only one that had tagged me. My kids had also tagged me, as I recognized their Instagram handles. My kids were something of Instagram influencers, and I followed them. I clicked on the post, and what I saw shocked me. It was a photo of me and Jake in a hotel room. It was obvious that we had just been intimate, and I looked as if I was sleeping in the photo. And even worse, Jake had been the one to post the photo. Not just that, in the caption, he had also bragged about being able to sleep with his lecturer, and the post was viral. I was shocked. I was horrified. I didn't even know what to do. It was as if time froze. Mike was staring at me, and it was obvious he had already seen the post. I noticed that my kids had also tagged him along with me on the post. Now I knew why my kids had been calling me. What would I tell everyone? The photo that Jake posted was so compromising that it was obvious what was going on, and I wouldn't even be able to lie about it. Mike had gotten up from the couch by now and was heading out. I tried to call out to him, but he stormed out. He was no longer calm and pretending as if everything was fine. I tried calling Mike after he left, but he wouldn't pick up. My kids also tried calling me again and even texted me. At that point, even my in-laws and family members had started calling me, It was as if everyone has stumbled on the post. I still tried reaching Mike, but all to no avail. But all I got back from him was a single text that by the time he came back in an hour or so, he wanted me out of the house. Now I've been married to Mike for a long time, and I know him like the back of my hand, so I knew that that was no empty threat. Mike was the kindest person that I knew, but when he got angry, he could do the craziest things. He never made empty threats, and if he promised to do something, he always went ahead with it no matter what. So I packed up just my clothes and essentials and left the house. I headed to my parents' house. And when I got there, I owned up to my mistake and told them what happened. They were angry, of course, but they couldn't abandon me in my time of need, so they took me in. As for my kids, it was as if the more I refused to pick their calls out of fear, the angrier they got. Soon, they had both sent me a text explaining that the thing with Jake was actually a game. Jake had been asked to pick a lecturer he would like to be intimate with, and he had chosen me. Jake had also boasted and told them to give him a few months, and that he would have me eating out of the palm of his hand soon enough. Of course, my kids hadn't experienced this firsthand as they were out of state for college, but they said that they had gotten this story from a very reliable person who was there at the party when Jake said it. I was so shocked to hear that, but suddenly it started to make sense. That was where all of a sudden Jake, who had never interacted much during lectures, apart from answering questions, when I asked, suddenly started helping me after lectures. I felt like a fool, and worse of all, I felt used. Mike still wasn't accepting my calls, so I decided to finally pick my kids' call. I couldn't tell them much as I didn't even have an excuse, so all I could do was apologize and cry. I begged them to help me, beg Mike. But they said that their dad was really hurt and that they weren't sure he would listen to anybody now. They felt so disappointed in me and said they felt so ashamed as a lot of people had tagged them under the post and a lot of people had recognized me. That is currently my situation now. I still haven't talked to my in-laws, but I know that they must be very disappointed in me. My parents are also very disappointed and saddened, and worst of all, my kids are shattered. The only communication that has gone on between Mike and me is him sending me a quick text, telling me that we would be getting a divorce. I feel shattered, I regret everything, and if I could go back in time, I would definitely do everything different. I'm posting this here, hoping that someone doesn't make the same mistake that I did. Thanks for listening.